It is working. The reality is that
There's 1,000 people killed in 20 months.
It is working. The reality is, when you look at all these different jurisdictions, we have had a devastating blow from the pandemic, and there is absolutely no correlation between being progressive or traditional and the rate of crime. These states in the United States that have a rate of homicide that is 40% higher are MAGA states. They are Trump states.
When you're under fire, just call people, just go to Trump and see if you can get cover that way.
First of all, the governor doesn't control the police in individual cities in an individual state. So get off the MAGA states. That's number one. Number two, this DA is an idiot. He says there is no correlation between crime and an aggressive and a traditional versus a progressive DA. I'm going to tell you what the correlation is. The progressive DA wants to let the criminal out. The traditional DA wants to lock him up and throw away the key and make sure that he pays for the crime that he commits. All right, that's real simple. So Krasner's out of his mind.
Okay, so Judge Pirro does not like it when you cite facts. And so she freaked out a little bit there. Now, I'm gonna need everyone to be nice to her. That was not their first segment that day, so she's at least a bottle and a half deep at that point. But what she said there was awesome, because Krasner talked about correlation. Correlation, people throw that out there, but it means something. It means that you can actually measure the connection between two different things. And so she said, I'll show you the correlation. They wanna let out the criminals. I took stats classes. That's not one of the things that you learn in stats classes. And the issue for Pirro is that while she would love to point to progressive DAs in random cities and say, oh, look, there's more crime there, that is obviously ignoring the fact that we are in very tough times and there's more crime literally everywhere. Simply pointing anecdotally to one city that you think buttresses your case and ignoring the others is not how you prove an actual thing. There is an ability to do that, and the stats have been done. We're gonna give you those actual facts in a little bit, see if we can push Pirro totally over the edge. But first, Ben, I wanted to give you a chance to jump in.
Well, I also love Dana Perino kicking it off with that very quick. People might forget Dana Perino was George W. Bush's press secretary. We love taking these corrupt former press secretaries from these corrupt Republican presidents and putting them on the news, letting them continue their great job of just obfuscating fact. She goes, oh, as soon as there's something there, you just blame Trump. You don't blame Trump people, Trump countries, Trump counties, Trump states. You do it because of statistics. Jeanine Pirro goes, this guy's an idiot. It's not about MAGA states for any political reason. It's that the crime overall is higher there. These are called statistics. Also, is Jeanine Pirro just having a slow rolling stroke over the last 5 years? She sounds like someone's turning off a robot very slowly. And it's not even this idea is super.
If it's a robot, it's an ethanol powered one. But anyway, yeah, she's doing her best.
I think she's smoking tar sands personally.
That is possible. That challenge her to, and she will. No, just ride by her house on a bicycle, and in response, she'll smoke tar sands. Anyway, here is the issue, and there are issues.
Get off my lawn! I'm having a nice tar smoke. Get away from me!
Oh my God. Okay, let's talk about the overall problem, and then let's talk about what Krasner was actually referencing there. So first of all, the US did see a 30% increase in murder back in 2020. Unfortunately for Pirro, that was when Trump was still president. Biden being president is why we have more crime, but the fact that the crime went up while Trump was president doesn't mean that he's responsible. That's always the way it works. While 2021 data is not yet complete, murder did appear to also be on the rise again this last year. And so as a result of that, because the midterms are coming up and because Biden is president, the Republicans want to say this is a problem for Democrats, which it could actually be. Not because they stated to be so, but it could factually turn out to be the case. But to find out whether that's true or not, you do not need a Pirro or a PERINO or whatever. What you need are social scientists to actually look into the actual stats that have been generated. And so we know that back in 2020, per capita murder rates were 40% higher in states won by Donald Trump than those won by Joe Biden. And to that, Pirro would say, lay off the MAGA states. Well, okay, I'm gonna lay off to some extent in that simply the fact that they voted for Trump is not why there is more crime. But I'm sorry, Pirro, you're not gonna like the most plausible explanations for why the crime is higher there, which we'll get to. 8 of the top 10 worst murder rate states voted for Trump in 2020. None of those 8 has supported a Democrat for president since 1996. And so just the ideology of the area is not responsible for it. Certainly not if who you want to blame are the Democrats, and that's what they are doing. In Jacksonville, which has a Republican mayor, importantly, we're not talking about the governor, Pirro, we're talking about the mayor, who actually does have influence over the police there. They had 128 more murders back in 2020 than San Francisco, which has a Democratic mayor. They are very similar populations, and you have heard no end of claims about Democrats in San Francisco over the last few years on San Francisco, and yet Jacksonville gets a pass, I guess. Bakersfield, that's the district that Kevin McCarthy is from, has a Republican mayor, has a much higher murder rate than San Francisco. And you can also go by this at the state level, with Mississippi having the highest homicide rate in the country. And so why is that? Well, look, we've been through a pandemic. There's been a lot of chaos. People lose their jobs. There's a lot of reasons, but largely in and outside of a pandemic, the places that have more homicides have more of the tools that make homicides easy to commit. Guns. That's why it's red states. It's not more murder because they like Trump in some abstract way. It's easier to kill people in these places because they've made it easier by flooding it with guns. It's not progressive DAs, it's weapons of war. It's routine access to things that get people killed. I saw a case recently of a guy who saw a couple walking by his house and they let their dog pee on something or poop on something, I don't know. And so he did what you do. He grabbed his assault weapon and shot both of them. Ooh. Okay? That wouldn't have happened if he hadn't had an assault weapon to grab. He might have yelled at them. He might have punched them. I have a feeling he wouldn't have killed them with his bare hands. The gun being there made it possible. But this is another conversation, I think, Ben, that would make Pirro very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it would. It's just incredible that the party that claims to be the party of law and order always seems to be really against liberal areas that maybe are admittedly a little softer on the smaller crimes that maybe even shouldn't be crimes, like victimless drug crimes, like weed-related things. And maybe while I think we should be harder on shoplifters in California has been recently, maybe that's not a crime that takes someone's life. And the Republican states tend to be really loose on the big crimes, like have guns, not stop people from being murdered, following democracy, the rule of our elections, that kind of stuff. They don't seem so law and order when it's the laws that could crumble an entire country or could take your life randomly when your dog's walking.
Yeah.
It's just wild. And also, who knew that in 2020 there was other reasons to stay indoors? I'm glad most of us stayed indoors with this increased murder rate. This is a little known statistic, though, that I'm making up in my head, but stabbing murders were down during 2020, mostly on account of the 6 feet social distancing. You just can't really reach. You know?
I'm glad that at least some people, the prospective knife murderers, were willing to abide by social distancing guidelines.
I
Thank
would
you,
stab
Fauci.
now, but there's stickers on the floor, so you'll escape today.
Would you mind leaning in a bit? Anyway, oh geez. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.